Don't ever doubt me. I will never steer you wrong. What did I tell you? What have I been telling you? That our economy is massively at risk right now. Every single one of us, in terms of our savings, it's incredibly vulnerable thanks to dumb policy coming out of a White House that, frankly, just doesn't get it. I mean, they're trying to pretend like they actually care about what's going on in Cuba right now and they care about the people and they're standing with the people. But if you really care about the people, then why are you trying to put socialist style policies here in the U.S. that are going to cost us all and depress the value of our U.S. dollar and our savings, everything that we have worked hard for? This administration is doing nothing to actually look out for the everyday Americans they pretend to care about. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish, and yes, we now have proof. 5.4%. That's how much consumer prices went up in the month of June. I have been pounding the table on this for months, and I'm going to keep reminding you of what is at stake right now. Our freedom, very much so, our freedom, and our economy. And you know, to me, these things go hand in hand, right? Capitalism and freedom, it's all part of the same thing. You can't really have a free society without that freedom in the marketplace. And for some reason, nobody wants to talk about that anymore. No. It's all about let's redistribute. Let me tell you, that is a recipe for what you see in the streets of Cuba right now with thousands of people marching, begging for some kind of better opportunity. Of course, the Squad and other leftist extremists are rather silent because they just think that, you know, Cuba is where it's at. Don't forget, this has been seeping into our society. Think about President Obama. Remember doing the wave? They're in Cuba. And now Joe Biden's trying to say, well, we're standing with the people. You better stand with the people. But if you really mean that you're going to stand with the people, then that means you're not going to do to us what these governments in the likes of Venezuela and Cuba have done to their people. And so that means going back effectively to where you once were, Joe, if you were ever really there, because I understand you're a political creature, and political creatures are just all about themselves, and they're exploiting the news cycle to try and help themselves and gain themselves. Well, I'm not okay with that. You shouldn't be okay with that. And you know what? Everyday Americans, they're not okay with that because the reality is this stupid economic policy, bad policy equals bad outcomes, is translating into higher prices for literally everything. Okay? Do you know the consumer prices are up 5.4%? That's the latest number we just got out of our government, 5.4% in the month of June. Highest since 2008, over a decade. This is not a sustainable path. We can't continue struggling with this much inflation because, let's face it, it's not like wages are going up that much. I mean, of course, well, maybe government wages. Government wages by way of unemployment, right? Because you don't actually have to do anything in order to collect a check from Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe, who, by the way, wants you to stay at home on the couch and do nothing. It's a play on the Uncle Sam thing. Anyway, inflation is here. You look at food prices, they're going up dramatically. You look at gasoline prices, they're going up dramatically. Housing prices just hit an all-time high. None of this is good for everyday Americans. And you need to think about how you're going to budget day to day and how you're going to plan for your retirement. And with that in mind, I do want to mention a wonderful, wonderful new company that I just found that I got a subscription to, GoodRanchers.com. GoodRanchers.com, where actually you can kind of control some of the food inflation costs that are going on right now because very, very reasonable prices here. I mean, it's roughly, I think it works out to $3 and change per meal, which is a really good thing in this kind of, environment. And you can lock in the price with a subscription. This is at GoodRanchers.com. I've tried all the food. I get the family deal. There's like a family selection that you can choose, and it's like enough for a month for a pretty good sized family. And they have chicken, and they have filet mignon, and they have ground beef, and they have wonderful, wonderful steaks, sirloins. They have ribs. Excellent, excellent, excellent food quality. All grass fed, and importantly, all American raised. I was shocked to actually find out that 80% of grass-fed beef comes from foreign sources. And so in this particular case with these guys, the guys that run the company are just great. And they have traveled to all the cattle ranches and they have met with all of the ranchers, and they can, assure you that these animals are having a good life, I guess, until they're not. But anyway, wonderful, wonderful quality food. I'm very picky about what I eat. I'm very picky about what I feed my family, and I highly recommend this. And again, extremely important in light of all the inflation that's going on. So I encourage you to go to goodranchers.com/Trish, because you're going to get a special deal I worked out with them. If you type in Trish, you're going to get $20 off. And again, goodranchers.com, you'll get free shipping as well. So you want the free shipping, you want the $20 off. Goodranchers.com, sign up for the subscription. Again, if you got a family, the family deal is the way to go. But back to what we're really seeing, which is, a socialist style, I think, implementation of policy that's happening, or they're trying to do. I mean, the Fed is there doing it, right? The Federal Reserve, for goodness sakes, printing money. They got to back off that. I don't think they will, though, because I think that Janet Yellen, if Powell tries to come out and say, okay, we're going to stop the printing presses, well, guess what she's going to do? She's going to say, buddy, you're out. She's going to put in a new person, possibly a woman, because then, you check the diversity card, all that. And they're going to continue printing. And so your dollar is going to continue being eroded in value. And so you need to think about that. Meanwhile, it's not just the Fed, right? It's like coming at us from all angles. It's what's going on with Washington and all this infrastructure spending. Well, I'm very impressed with Joe Manchin. I wish that more Democrats would be responsible like this. It's like he's kind of an old-fashioned, old-style Dem, like one that, we didn't or we used to see, but we haven't seen in years, given the likes of AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. These people actually somehow think that the United States is somehow synonymous with the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. I mean, this is crazy, crazy stuff that's happening right now. So out comes Joe Manchin, and he's now saying, look, you guys want an infrastructure deal? Then you're going to have to figure out how to actually pay for it. Can you believe that? Like, I kind of think that we need to go back to our basic roots here. Like, how do you pay for something? Nobody talks about that, apparently. It's not necessary anymore because you can just print money. Well, that didn't work out so well in Venezuela, where they printed. And I can think of a few other economies as well. Look, we have the luxury of being the world's largest economy and the world's reserve currency. But how long can that continue? I mean, you're the world's reserve currency, and yet you keep printing. At some point, that starts to catch up with you. It's certainly already caught up with everyday Americans right now who do not have as much money every week right now because the costs are going up. Look at diapers. Diaper costs up 14% in the last year, according to a report out of Bloomberg. And that's even worse than 5.4%, right, for regular consumer prices. What does that do to the small family at home that's just getting started in life? They're trying to make ends meet. Joe Biden comes in there promising to help all them. And yet, what does he do? He raises costs for all of them. Same thing happened, by the way, during the 8 years of the Obama-Biden administration. The cost for everyday things like gas and food, they went up. Wages went nowhere. 8 years of no wage growth. I'm sorry, I don't want to sign up for that. I don't want to sign up for socialism. I just don't. And you look at what's happening in Cuba right now, and it's so important that this happen. People need to speak up for themselves. People need to take their country back there. Same thing in Venezuela. You have people starving thanks to these regimes that take it all for themselves. I mean, it sounds familiar, right? I mean, AOC with her, fancy apartments and Tesla car still wants to take money from all of you to give to those that she thinks are going to vote for her. And then when, people stand up to this and they say, look, this isn't really going to fly, and we want to make sure that the people who vote really and truly, should be voting. Well, what happens? Everybody accuses them of some pretty horrific stuff. I mean, labeling them somehow racist. You get Jen Psaki saying what's going on right now in this country in terms of some of the Voting Act reforms. This is the worst thing since the Civil War. Give me a break. I mean, how disrespectful, frankly, to all the people that died fighting to free the slaves. Republicans, by the way, mind you, that was the Republican Party fighting for freedom of Black Americans. But somehow now we're right back there. Come on. Texas Democrats actually getting on a chartered plane, a jet, with apparently a case of beer. No masks, by the way. They took pictures, selfies, no masks, because, again, the rules don't apply to them. They get to jet out of town. Now they get the Texas Rangers that may be coming after them if and when they ever return to Texas. I mean, they just said, we're not going to do our job. They took their towel, they went home. It's not okay. It's not okay by me. It shouldn't be okay with you. And you know what? It's certainly not okay with the people of Texas. We can't have this happening on a national level, or then we're no better than one of these banana republics that's all messed up to begin with. We need to remember the importance of freedom. We need to remember that we are Americans, and this is still the greatest nation on earth because of the freedoms we have, right? Live free or die, as I say, which actually my hat says. If you're watching the video of this, by the way, subscribe. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. Give me a thumbs up as well, but I don't know if you can see it. It's very subtly written in some white embroidery. This hat from my store, trishintel.com, says live free or die on it, because that's what we need to remember. You know what? We need to be free. And quite literally right now, when you consider what's happening in France, you can't go to a bar, you can't go to a restaurant. This is beginning in a couple of weeks unless you show proof, a scan, an ID card that shows that you've been vaccinated. So they're really just locking their country down, and they're going to turn it into, who's been vaccinated, who hasn't. I have a friend who has some serious health vulnerabilities, and she's quite terrified of getting the vaccine. So I understand that, right? Like, I respect that. She's an individual that should be able to make those choices. She's lucky she lives in America and not in France. And I think it's just important that we remember that, right? Let's not become France. I realize all the socialists would just love that. Love that. But you know what? Live free or die still has meaning here. Don't ever forget it. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Make sure, again, that you've subscribed to the channel, to the podcast. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. There's a lot that needs to happen. And we need to spread the word. I think we need to speak out as people with like-minded values that believe in this country and believe in prosperity and believe in equality. We need to set the bar higher. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.